us a little bit about your story. How, why did you build your company? How do you start?
Well, my story really begins with my family. My grandfather, Ed Gum, was a dairy farmer in eastern Pennsylvania, and he raised about 150 head of dairy cows. And I grew up helping him on his farm, along with my uncle who worked the farm with him. And as I kind of come to understand now, being a dairy farmer is about as entrepreneurial as you can possibly be. When you plant something in the spring, of corn or alfalfa or whatever it is, you're taking a risk every year. You put something in the ground, and you're constantly subject to the weather, to sickness, to all those things. And so every year it's like starting a business over again. And I think what I learned from my grandfather is just how to be perseverant through difficulties, and just working and not stopping, basically, and the work ethic that just has stuck with me, and seeing how they would just work endlessly to achieve basically a living in their case, but the success in their terms was having a good harvest and filling up the silos. I remember those times vividly. My parents also taught me to be entrepreneurial. They had me from the time I was very little. They had me out on our own small farm that we kind of had as a hobby, raising vegetables, raising chickens, those sorts of things, and selling those to our neighbors, selling sweet corn and tomatoes and all those different things. From the time I was 10, 12, up until the time I was in high school, that was my business. That was my business. That's what I did. And so I had exposure to being a businessman, not so much, I wouldn't say an entrepreneur, although I guess that would be entrepreneurial, from the time I was knee-high to a grasshopper, so to speak. And really, the reason I started choice bagging equipment wasn't so much that I had this overwhelming desire to build bag packaging machinery. It was because at the time I was ready to start college. Actually, I was in my senior year of high school. We had fallen on some hard times. My family had pretty well lost everything, come through a pretty intense bankruptcy, and I had no money for college. We came to Texas from Pennsylvania, dead broke, didn't have a dime, and so I had no college fund. I had no scholarships to speak of in high school. I was a C student at best. I had always struggled in my classes, mainly because my mind would wander and I wouldn't be where the teachers wanted me to be. But anyway, I wasn't eligible for scholarships, and I had no money. So
how do you start it with no money?
Yeah, so my dad came to me, and he had managed to save about $3,000 from the sale of different things that we'd had in Pennsylvania. When we came to Texas, he had this money, and I remember it vividly. He met me in the hallway of the house we were living in Pflugerville, a small house in Pflugerville, and he actually approached my sisters and I. have two sisters; they're both younger than I. But he approached my sisters and I and said that he had this idea for how to help us get through college. All of us, really. And so there was me. I was a senior in high school. My sister Laura is the next youngest. She was a sophomore, and my sister Megan was still in middle school at the time. But anyway, he approached all three of us. It wasn't just me that he approached, but he came to all three of us and he said, I have this idea for a business. My father had been, in the years previous, a service technician and had his own business working and servicing and building packaging machinery for another company by the name of St. Regis, and he had actually struck out on his own, and started his own company and worked it for about 10 years until he lost his company. But he had this experience, and so he said, I can give you this money, and you can make the best of it with as best you can with $3,000 to split between the three of you, or I can give you this $3,000 and teach you a trade so that you can basically make money to get through college. And I guess that was pretty well a crossroads. I mean, it still stands out in my mind because we were standing in the hallway of the house, and the hallway has basically, you can go, there's a passage to go left, which was basically in our living room, and another passage to go into kind of the front room where we had our television and things like that. And I could have gone left and could have gone right, and I chose right, which was to start this company. And so I was a senior in high school, working out of my bedroom, and I had a Dell laptop and a telephone is really all I had. Zero experience, doing any of it. Really didn't know much about what I was doing. I had been around my dad in the past, over the time in my childhood that he had been doing this work, and I'd gone with him to some plants, and so I kind of knew what the machines were, but I had no idea how they functioned internally, and I had no idea the parts and all those different things. So I was starting with zero knowledge and just picking up the telephone and calling people.
You called people and said, you want me to build your machine, you want me to fix your machine?
Didn't start that way. Started by selling parts. So I basically I had some sources that could get parts for us that I could resell to people that already had the machines. But it was slim pickings the first year or two. And actually, even though it was pretty tight, I still did pretty well. We sold about $56,000 the first year. So I was a senior in high school and sold $56,000 worth of bag of parts. Yeah, that was really good for us. I thought that was just, it couldn't get any better than that, really. And so we ended up running our first shop, which was about 800 square feet, and we started to stock some things up until that point. That first year, we basically just drop shipped all the parts from our suppliers directly to the customers, and so from there we had this 800 square foot little shop, as we call it, and I started to buy old machines that I knew people had, some old bag fillers.